If you'd asked me 3 years ago where I'd be by 30, I would have said something confident and wrong. Probably something like, creative director in a sunny SoCal office, morning coffee in hand, sleek heels tapping across polished floors. But the truth is I was 29, burnt out from a tech startup that chewed through people like printer ink, living off severance and freelance checks that barely covered rent. By the end of October, I was chasing a sliver of hope to Barstow, California, a solar tech company with a position that sounded like a lifeline. I needed the job, badly, but I couldn't afford a nice place to stay, not with gas prices climbing and my bank account dipping. So when I found the Wild Pine Motel online with surprisingly decent reviews and a weeknight rate under $70, I didn't hesitate. The photos showed faded pine trees lining the parking lot, a chipped but glowing sign, and a front desk that looked like it hadn't seen a renovation since the late 90s. But it looked clean, and I told myself that's all I needed. One night of peace before the interview. I rolled into Barstow just after 6 in the evening. The sun had dipped low, bathing the desert in long shadows. The motel looked even more worn in person. Pine needles littered the lot, and a flickering red vacancy sign blinked weakly through the dust on the front window. Still, I was too tired to be picky. Inside, the lobby smelled like old carpet and hand soap. A small TV on mute played a news station, and behind the desk sat an older man in a maroon sweater, his hands trembling slightly as he typed on a faded keyboard. "Evenin', miss," he said without looking up. "Checking in?" "Yeah, Maya Torres. Room 6, I think." He squinted at the screen, clicked twice, then looked up. "Yep, room 6 already checked in." I blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "Says your roommate got here about half hour ago." He said it like it was perfectly normal. "I didn't book a double," I replied carefully. "It was just me. Solo. One night." He looked again, then shrugged. "Sometimes the system glitches. You know how these online bookings are. If you're not okay with sharing, I can give you a refund, but we're full tonight." Of course they were. He handed me a metal key on a plastic fob, the kind that clanked in your hand. I took it reluctantly and walked back out into the night. Room 6 was at the far end, tucked under a broken security light. My footsteps echoed across the cracked pavement as I approached. I told myself it was fine. Just one night. When I opened the door, she was already inside. She looked maybe 25. Petite, pale, with reddish blonde hair tied in a low knot. She sat cross-legged on the bed closest to the window, earbuds dangling from her neck and a duffel bag at her feet. "You must be Maya," she said, smiling wide. "I'm Lacey. I hope you don't mind. I took this bed. Window makes me feel safer." I stood in the doorway, unsure what to say. My brain scrambled to piece it all together. "No worries," I mumbled, stepping inside. The room was small. 2 twin beds, a desk, a chair, a bulky old TV mounted on the wall, and a bathroom that smelled like citrus cleaner and mildew. "I didn't know I'd be sharing," I said carefully. She shrugged. "I won't snore or anything. Promise." I set my bag on the second bed and told myself to breathe. Just one night, that's all. By 8 p.m., the room felt colder than it should have. The AC rattled quietly, pushing out air that smelled faintly metallic. I scrolled aimlessly on my phone, half listening to Lacey hum some tune I couldn't place. She hadn't left the bed since I arrived, just switched between watching random YouTube videos and scribbling in a small spiral-bound notebook. "Do you travel for work?" I asked, trying to make the best of a weird situation. She looked up with that same wide smile. "Not exactly. I just go where I feel pulled, you know?" I didn't. "Oh," I said. Silence stretched and she went back to writing. Around 9:30, I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth. When I came out, Lacey was sitting up straighter, legs tucked under her now. "You hear him in the walls too?" she asked suddenly. I stopped cold. "What?" Her head tilted like a curious bird. "The man in the walls. Sometimes he taps, not loud, Just so you know, he's still there." I stared at her. "Is this a joke?" She blinked. "No, don't worry. He doesn't hurt women, at least not the first night." My skin prickled. I laughed nervously, hoping she'd crack a smile. She didn't. I got into bed, fully clothed. Lacey turned off the lamp, and darkness swallowed the room except for the flicker of the motel sign through the curtain crack. It must have been just after midnight when I got the text. Unknown number. No contact photo. No preview. "You shouldn't be in that room. Leave now. He's watching both of you." I sat up, heart punching against my ribs. I stared at Lacey's silhouette across the room. She was still, breathing slow. Asleep? I grabbed my keys from the nightstand, slid my sneakers on, and moved toward the door as quietly as I could. As I pulled the door open, something moved. Fast. From the far end of the walkway, a man, tall, gaunt, wearing torn overalls, ran straight at me from the shadows. I screamed and slammed the door shut, locking the deadbolt. Lacey didn't wake, or didn't care. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the bed staring at the door, phone in hand, heart thumping. No more texts, no noise. Just the hollow hum of the AC and the occasional creak of old pipes. Around 2 a.m. I tried the front office again. I walked fast, keys between my fingers, eyes scanning every shadow. The lobby was dark, closed. I pounded on the glass. No answer. I ducked behind a dumpster near the parking lot and called the police. Someone tried to break into my room. I whispered. "Room 6, Wild Pine Motel, Barstow." They said someone would be there in 10 minutes. It took 22. By the time the 2 officers arrived, my adrenaline had crashed into nausea. One checked the room with me while the other questioned the clerk, who claimed he knew nothing about any double booking or mysterious guests. Room 6 was empty. Lacey was gone. Her bag, her earbuds, everything. No trace. The window screen had been tampered with. Scratches on the sill. The officers didn't find anyone in the lot. No security cameras either. No record of who had checked in besides me. The man? The text? Nothing confirmed. I slept the rest of the night in my car, parked 2 blocks away with the doors locked and the dome light off. I showed up to my interview the next morning wearing the same clothes. No makeup, hair tied back, bags under my eyes. The woman interviewing me offered me water and asked if I was okay. I told her I had car trouble. Somehow I nailed it. They offered me the job a week later. But I never went back to Barstow. I never looked up what happened to the Wild Pine Motel. Some things are better left untouched. To this day, I can't stay in motel rooms, especially not the ones with flickering exit signs or rooms with thin walls. Sometimes late at night, I still hear tapping, soft and rhythmic, but I always remind myself, it's just the pipes, right? Last winter, I had to stay overnight in Fresno for a client pitch. Corporate booked me into a Holiday Inn. Nothing fancy, but the room had 2 beds, even though I was traveling alone. I kept the second bed untouched, didn't sit on it, didn't even put my bag on it, just stared at it all night. I kept the closet door open, checked under the bed, behind the curtain. I kept the bathroom light on. At 2 a.m. there was a knock, 3 light taps. I didn't move. Eventually, whoever it was walked away. I never found out who it was or why they knocked. The hallway camera outside the door, I was told later, wasn't working that night. Sometimes the scariest stories don't scream. They whisper. They walk on soft feet. They sit next to you smiling politely, earbuds dangling. They tell you things like, "You hear him in the walls too?" And you learn to listen to that voice inside you. The one that tells you when something's wrong even if nothing bad has happened. Yet, trust your instincts. The world doesn't always show its teeth before it bites. Fear doesn't need a climax to be real. Sometimes it's the quiet wrongness, the gut feeling, the hesitation before a knock that saves your life. Listen, and never open the door unless you know who's on the other side. Somewhere between the last fight and the last silence, I stopped recognizing the man I married. Jason and I had been together for 6 years. We were happy once, I think. At least that's what the old photos suggest. But when we lost the baby last winter, something inside both of us cracked. He turned cold. I turned quiet. Neither of us knew how to reach for the other anymore, and soon, it didn't seem worth the effort. It was Jason's idea to go away. "Let's reset," he said one morning, sliding a folded brochure across the table like it was a truce. No distractions, just us. I didn't want to go, but I said yes anyway. Not out of hope, I think I'd stopped hoping months ago, but out of some slow, sinking guilt. For the silence, for the way I stopped touching him, for the hollow space that had grown between us like a locked room we were both afraid to open. We arrived at Bitter Willow Motel just after 8 p.m., headlights cutting through fog and tall trees. The place sat crooked off an old gravel road outside Fall Creek, Virginia. 1 story, 6 rooms, porch lights buzzing like dying flies. A cracked ice machine sat unused in the corner of the lot, and the office was manned by a boy who couldn't have been more than 16. He handed us the key to room 4 without asking for ID. Inside, the room smelled faintly of mold and cleaning spray. The carpet was green, old enough to remember dial-up internet. A wall lamp blinked, then steadied, humming like it was trying to say something no one wanted to hear. Jason set our bags down and exhaled like he'd just done something heroic. "This place has character," he joked, pulling out the flask I didn't know he'd packed. I didn't laugh. I just stared at the window, the one facing the trees, the one with the curtain that didn't quite close all the way. We didn't talk much that evening. Jason drank. I opened my book but didn't read. The silence wasn't comfortable. It was sharp, like glass between us. I remember thinking how strange it is to be sitting 3 feet from someone you once knew like your own skin and feel like you're in separate worlds. Then he went to shower, and everything fell apart. His phone lit up on the nightstand. I didn't reach for it right away. I stared at it, watched it buzz twice before going still. I told myself not to look. I told myself it wasn't my business. But the silence in that room was louder than guilt, and the light from that screen was the only thing breathing. So I looked. Can't wait till this is over. She doesn't suspect anything. I scrolled. Dozens of texts. From someone named Maya. Messages laced with sarcasm and private jokes, ones that circled around me like I was some outdated object taking up space. Jason came out of the bathroom towel-clad, dripping water, laughing about the poor water pressure. "You want a turn?" he asked, grinning. I held up the phone instead. His smile dropped. "Rhea," he said, voice already shifting. "It's not what you think." I said nothing. She was just someone I talked to after what happened. You weren't exactly open, you know? I needed someone. Emotional support. That word, support, sounded like mockery coming from him. "You lied to me," I said quietly. "You're still lying." "You've been fragile for months," he snapped. "Don't twist this into something it's not." He always did that. Flipped the script so I became the villain. So I became fragile. I'd forgotten what rage felt like until that moment. The shouting started. I don't remember the words. Just the sound of something in me breaking loose. His voice rising, his hands gesturing wild. Then, without a coat, without a phone, he stormed out into the woods behind the motel, said he needed air, said he couldn't deal with this version of me. Then he was gone. I stared at the door for a long time after it closed. The lamp buzzed beside me. Somewhere outside, the porch swing creaked in the wind. 15 minutes, then 30. Then nearly an hour passed and he still wasn't back. I paced the room, sat down, stood again. My reflection in the mirror looked pale and stretched, like something not quite real. I thought about leaving, just grabbing the car and driving until the road ran out. But I didn't. Something kept me tethered there, Eventually, I stepped out into the night. The air was colder than I expected. I walked past the broken fence at the edge of the lot and into the woods, guided by the sliver of moonlight and the sound of water somewhere ahead. I found him near a shallow creek, sitting on a damp log, hunched over, drunk and mumbling to himself. "You came to find me," he slurred. "That's something, I guess." I didn't speak at first. "You lied to me," I finally said. "You made me feel crazy." "I didn't make you feel anything," he shot back. We argued again. The words were messy, half-formed, tinged with years of things we never said. He accused. I denied. He laughed like I was ridiculous. "You always want to be the victim," he said. "Maybe that's why you couldn't keep." That's when I pushed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't hard. But he slipped. One foot caught on the mossy edge of the creek and the other gave out. He fell sideways, head hitting something sharp. The sound was small, a crack maybe, and then silence. I knelt beside him, shaking, calling his name. Nothing. The water moved around his leg, slow and muddy. I panicked. Dragged him toward the bank, rearranged him like a doll, like something broken but still salvageable. I wiped my face, tried to breathe, and then I walked back to the motel. I called the sheriff just after midnight, said Jason went for a walk and never came back, played scared, played innocent. The deputy's voice was calm, careful. They said they'd be there soon, said they'd start a search. The woods filled up with flashlights and barking dogs. I stood by room 4, wrapped in a motel blanket, shaking for real this time. They found him near dawn. An accident, they said, slipped, hit his head, must have lost his footing in the dark. No signs of struggle, no bruises, no autopsy requested. They wrapped him in a gray blanket and carried him away. I nodded, cried in the right moments, gave a statement, answered the questions. By Sunday it was all over. I packed up, drove home, and by the following month I'd moved to Richmond. New apartment, new job, new version of myself. I didn't tell anyone the truth, didn't write it down, didn't even whisper it. But every now and then I think about that motel, the flickering lamp, the damp woods, the man who called me fragile, and how easy it was, in the end, to let him fall. It's been almost a year. I keep busy. I smile more. People say I seem lighter now, like I've found myself again. I don't talk about Jason. If people ask, I say it was a hiking accident, a tragedy. They nod. They don't pry. But I've started noticing things, like how my hands go cold when I pass motels on long drives, or how I double-check locks at night, or how sometimes in dreams I see him. Not angry, just standing there, watching. I'm not haunted by what I did. I'm haunted by how simple it was. To step over the edge of a life I thought I'd built and become someone else entirely. Sometimes people aren't monsters because of what they do in the dark. Sometimes they're monsters because of how well they hide in plain sight, wearing smiles, saying just the right thing, breaking you piece by piece and calling it love. He died the way he lived, convincing everyone he was the victim. But I know better. And now, so do you. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most, not with fists, but with silence, deception, and control. Listen to your instincts, protect your peace, and never feel guilty for walking away from someone who made you doubt your worth. Because love should never feel like fear. You never think a weekend will change your life. Not when it's just your college best friends, 2 dingy motel rooms, and a half-stocked cooler in the trunk. We were supposed to be celebrating. 4 of us. Anna, that's me, Madison, Hannah, and Emily. College had ended months ago, but life pulled us in opposite directions. Madison was in Seattle, already knee-deep in corporate marketing. Hannah stayed in Portland, waitressing between auditions. I was finishing my nursing residency in Eugene. Emily had dropped off a bit. Her messages got slower, shorter, but she said she was in for the weekend. We booked something cheap halfway between us. Amber Pines Motor Lodge just outside Crescent Ridge. It looked harmless online. Rustic charm, wood-paneled rooms, a small hiking trail out back. 2 double rooms, side by side. Perfect. When we pulled up around 5:30 Saturday evening, the place looked like it had been waiting for us. Quiet. Still. Only one other car in the lot, a red hatchback, dusty like it hadn't moved in days. The sign buzzed half-lit. Amber Pines Motor Lodge in peeling green letters. The air smelled faintly of pine and something else, something metallic. The woman at the front desk didn't greet us, just stared a little too long and slid the keys across the counter. Her fingers were wrapped in thick gauze. I almost asked what happened to her hands, but something in her expression made me swallow the question. We laughed about it in the parking lot. Small-town cryptid energy, Madison joked, flipping her keys. She definitely eats tourists. Rooms 3 and 4. Hannah and I took 3. Madison and Emily had 4. We dumped our stuff, cracked open beers, and pulled out a deck of cards. By the second round of kings, Emily was already drifting. She sat curled near the window, sipping slowly, eyes fixed on something outside. "You okay?" I asked. She smiled, a little too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." It was Madison's idea to explore the property. "Come on," she said, already pulling out her phone. "Let's make a Lost in the Woods TikTok or something. It's creepy out here, perfect." We followed the narrow trail that circled behind the motel. Just forest and silence. The occasional rustle. 1 or 2 broken yard lights buried in weeds. That's when Hannah saw it. A small sunken slab behind a rusted utility shed. A trap door. We didn't think it was real at first. It looked like a fake movie prop, covered in leaves and warped boards. But Madison knocked on it, and it gave a hollow thump. "You're not seriously thinking of going in there," I said. "I am absolutely thinking of going in there," she grinned. We used a rusted fire extinguisher from behind the shed to pry it open. A steep staircase led down into darkness. The smell hit us first. Mildew, dust, and something rotten just beneath it. Emily was already pulling out her flashlight app. "I'll go first," she said. I wanted to stop her. I almost did. The basement was bigger than expected. Dry. Too dry. Like it hadn't been touched by the outside in years. Along the walls were old children's toys, cracked dolls, a broken crib, a warped rocking horse in the corner. Tally marks covered the concrete wall. Hundreds, maybe thousands, some deep, others barely scratched. "This is messed up," Hannah whispered. Madison filmed the whole thing, laughing nervously, narrating like it was a ghost tour. But none of us were laughing anymore. Emily stood still, staring at the wall, at the markings. Then she whispered, "It's not just tally marks, it's names. Look." We left soon after that. Too quiet. No jokes on the way back. The sun was already down when we got back to the room. That's when Emily started acting different. It started with the mirror. She stood in the motel bathroom for 10, 15 minutes at a time, just staring. At first I thought she was getting ready, but she wasn't brushing her hair or fixing her makeup. She was just watching. "Earth to Emily," Madison called from the other room. "You gonna ghost us all weekend?" Emily didn't answer. Later that night, she started talking in her sleep. Fast, jumbled words, names we didn't recognize. She said Madison's name once, but not like she was dreaming about her, like she was warning her, like she was scolding her. We didn't laugh anymore. Sunday morning, we found scratches on Emily's arm, deep, almost intentional. She claimed someone touched her in the night. "There was someone sitting on my bed," she said. "I felt the pressure, I heard breathing." "No one went in there," I said gently. "The door was locked." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't believe me?" I hesitated. "I believe something scared you. You never believed me, any of you." We didn't know what she meant. Madison tried to change the subject, joked about using a Ouija board. Emily's face changed, like a switch flipped. "Don't bring that thing here," she snapped. "You don't know what's down there, what we opened." Then she started shaking. Her body twisted, arms clenched to her chest. She collapsed screaming. A low, guttural sound that didn't sound like her. Dark fluid spilled from her mouth. It smelled like soil, like decay. We called 911. They took her away strapped to a stretcher. The EMT said her vitals were normal, but her pupils didn't respond, and she wouldn't stop whispering. The same word. Over and over. Stay. They kept her at a private care facility outside Salem. She hasn't spoken since. We gave statements to the sheriff. He barely took notes, said maybe it was mushrooms, fentanyl laced in something. But the tox screen came back clean. No substances, no psychotic episodes in her medical history. Just blank. We told the motel staff about the basement, about the trap door. The woman at the desk blinked slowly. "There's no basement here," she said. "But we saw it, we went inside." "There is no basement," she repeated. We demanded to see the camera footage. Madison even offered to call a lawyer. They said the cameras weren't working that night, claimed they were undergoing upgrades. We checked the video on Madison's phone. It played normally until we reached the part where we opened the trap door. Then, static. A loud crackle. Frames skipped and glitched. The entire clip after that, black screen. No audio, no images, just data. Corrupted. That was it. We packed up and drove home without speaking. We never talk about what happened. Not really. Emily is still in care, unresponsive. Madison deleted her social media. Hannah moved back in with her parents for a while. I still have my residency to finish. Patients to see. Lives to save. But some nights, when I leave the hospital, I look in the rearview mirror and expect to see her. The Emily from the basement whispering that word again. Stay. Sometimes I dream of that room, of the trapdoor, of the tally marks. The rocking horse starts to move on its own in my dreams now. Back and forth. Back and forth. I wake up with the smell of mildew in my nose. We were 4 best friends once. Now we're 3 who barely speak. And 1 who never will again. Some doors should stay closed. Not every mystery needs solving. When we chase darkness for fun, sometimes it follows us homing, and it doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits, quietly, until someone opens the wrong door. I never wanted anything from my father. Not his name, not his silence, and definitely not his broken-down motel. The call came last winter. I was grading essays in my tiny apartment in Queens when a lawyer called from a firm in Albany, said I was listed as next of kin for a man named Raymond Whitaker. Took me a solid 10 seconds to remember. That was my father's name. I hadn't seen him since I was 11. He'd left us quietly. One morning his boots weren't by the door, and by dinner his toothbrush was gone. My mother used to say he disappeared with the snow. I never knew if that meant he died or just ran south. Turns out neither. He'd been in upstate New York all these years, running, or more likely failing to run, a 6-room motel called Sundown Crossings, sitting just off exit 22 near Somerville. The name sounded like a place where bad things get buried. The property came with no debt and no value. The lawyer said that like it was supposed to be comforting. I went up once in April just to see it. Couldn't explain why. The building was faded brown, half-eaten by vines. The neon sign was cracked, but the letters still buzzed faintly at dusk. Something about the silence around that place, it didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. Maybe that's why I didn't sell it right away. Instead, I used my summer break to renovate it. I don't know. Maybe I saw an escape hatch from my routine. I'd been teaching 11th grade English for 8 years. Same classroom, same apartment, same burnt coffee. Fixing up the motel gave me something tactile. I didn't think of it as reconnecting with my father. That ship had sunk. I thought of it as repurposing the wreckage. I cleaned, painted, repaired wiring, installed digital locks on the doors, set up a remote booking app that let truckers and travelers check in after hours. No staff, no contact, just automation. Passive income while I stayed in the city. It worked fine, at first. Then came Tuesday night, 9:13 p.m., and room 5. That Tuesday had been rough. Fire drills, 2 kids caught vaping in the bathroom, and one of my seniors plagiarized an entire essay about the Great Gatsby. By 9 p.m., I'd just finished microwaving dinner when my phone buzzed with a booking alert. Room 5, Caleb Drayton. Not a name I recognized, but that wasn't unusual. The app handled dozens of anonymous guests since I launched it in July. Truckers mostly, night owls, couples looking for privacy. But what struck me was the message that followed. Something's wrong with the water. Can you come in person? No punctuation, no context, just that. I sat there staring at the screen, then texted back, "Hi Caleb, please describe the issue." No reply. The thing is, I shouldn't have gone. I was tired. The motel was 20 minutes upstate in the wrong direction from my bed in Bourbon, but something itched at the base of my neck. Not panic, just this prickling instinct. So I grabbed my keys. By the time I pulled into the gravel lot, it had started to rain. Not hard, just enough to smear the windshield and blur the headlights. The place was quiet. Too quiet. There was no car in the lot. Not even the red hatchback that belonged to the guy who usually cleaned up once a week. The office was dark. Room 5's porch light was off. But the door, it was open. Not wide, just a sliver. Enough to say, "I'm waiting." I stepped out, keeping the engine running, walked up to room 5, knocked once. "Hello?" No answer. Inside, the bed was made, pristine. A towel folded neatly on the chair. The air smelled faintly of men's cologne, expensive stuff. There was a half-empty bottle of beer on the dresser, beads of condensation still fresh, but no sign of anyone. I should have left then. I really should have. But I turned toward the door, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, from above. Problem was, the motel didn't have a second floor. I froze. The sound didn't come from a TV or pipes or the wind. I know what footsteps sound like. And these were overhead, directly above me, which, again, was impossible. The roof over room 5 was flat. No attic, no crawl space, nothing but shingles and cold air. The steps moved slowly, a few paces across, then stopped. I stood there holding my breath, ears ringing from the blood pressure in my skull. That's when room 3 creaked open. It was across the lot 15 feet away. Its light was off. I hadn't rented room 3 in over a week. The door opened wider. 3 men stepped out. They didn't speak, didn't move quickly, just came out like they were expecting company. One of them held a tire iron. Another was wearing a navy hoodie, my navy hoodie, the one I kept in the utility closet for cold mornings. The third, he just smiled. I didn't run, I wanted to. Every muscle begged for it. But I walked, slowly, hands at my sides. I nodded once like we were neighbors. No one spoke. I backed into my car and pulled the door shut. They stood there, just watching. I drove away without blinking, afraid to check the rearview mirror. I called the police halfway down the highway, told them someone had broken into the motel. I didn't mention the footsteps, or the way one of them smiled like he knew me. They said they'd dispatch someone. I waited at a rest stop 20 minutes out, hands shaking so bad I spilled coffee on my jeans. When the deputy called, his voice was casual, like it was no big deal. "No one's here now," he said. "Room 3's lock's been jimmied, no prints. Room 5 looks untouched. No sign of this Caleb Drayton. You sure the booking was real?" I sent him the confirmation email. An hour later, he called again. The card used for the booking was flagged as stolen last week, out of state. The footage from the security cams? Gone. Completely. System unplugged 2 hours before the message came in. I hadn't done it. No one else had access. I disabled every online listing that night, locked every room manually. 2 days later, I started the paperwork to sell. I sold the property in late November, took a loss on it, but I didn't care. I didn't even go back to collect the furniture. I let it all stay. Beds, TVs, even the navy hoodie in the utility closet, maybe especially the hoodie. I still teach in Queens. Still sip bad coffee. Still grade too many essays about the American dream. But I can't pass a rest stop without looking twice. I can't hear slow footsteps without bracing. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see those 3 men stepping out of room 3, tire iron glinting in the rain. And I keep wondering, they weren't just breaking in. They weren't robbing the place. They were waiting for me. Trust your instincts. Not every strange noise is harmless. Not every question needs answering. And sometimes when something feels wrong, it's because it is. Let the door stay closed. Let the room stay empty. Some visitors aren't looking for a place to stay, they're looking for a way in. They say people come to small towns to slow down, to breathe again. For us, it wasn't that poetic. It was survival. After everything fell apart in the city, my mother's sudden death, the crushing weight of my job at the agency, and Noah's burnout from the school district, we didn't want therapy or yoga retreats. We wanted stillness, something simple, somewhere cheap. So we came to Maple Hollow, North Carolina, a name that sounded soft, like something from a postcard. It wasn't. It was a place time forgot. One diner, a grocery store that closed at 6, and a rusted gas station with handwritten signs. That's where we found the Fern Hollow Motor Inn, half hidden behind an old strip mall that hadn't seen foot traffic since the 90s. The motel wasn't glamorous. It was one long strip of rooms, single story, the paint faded to a kind of weary beige. It had a line of crooked numbers over each door and plastic chairs out front that wobbled if you sat wrong. But it was cheap, and the manager, Rick, didn't ask too many questions. We signed a month-to-month deal for Unit 7 and started calling it home. Noah had lined up a job teaching English at the high school, though it wouldn't start until fall. I was taking time to process, whatever that meant. Mostly I stared out the window. I'd smoked in college, picked it back up after Mom passed, and now I sat outside on the curb most evenings, cigarette in one hand, my thoughts in the other. That's when I saw them for the first time. It was a Monday evening, right around dusk. The sky was a wash of pale orange, and the crickets were just starting to warm up. I'd stepped outside to smoke and noticed the unit next door, Unit 8, had been rented. That was news to me. It had been empty the whole week prior. The couple didn't arrive in a car, at least not one I saw. Just appeared like they belonged there. Middle-aged, maybe late 50s, both wearing gray raincoats that looked new. Not like they belonged in this muggy southern heat. Behind their unit, they'd hitched a silver camper trailer to the chain-link fence. Polished, spotless, not a single speck of dirt on it. I didn't want to stare, but it was hard not to. They moved together in sync, not speaking, just walking in slow circles around the lone tree in the gravel yard behind Unit 8. They'd placed candles around it, real ones, not those battery-powered things, and lit them with one of those long fireplace lighters. It wasn't a cookout. It wasn't a celebration. They weren't smiling. They were chanting or praying. I couldn't hear the words, not clearly, but the sound rose and fell like waves. Low, rhythmic, deliberate. The hair on my arms stood up. I flicked my cigarette, told myself I didn't see anything, went back inside and said nothing to Noah. Just weirdos, I muttered under my breath, brushing past him in the kitchenette. What? He asked. Nothing, just tired. I didn't sleep well that night. Something about the silence outside felt too thick, too expectant, like the world was holding its breath. The next morning, Unit 8 was empty. Door ajar, lights off. Not a sign of them, or the camper. I peeked around the back. No candles, no trailer, no tire marks, just the tree. And then I saw it. A note, folded in half, resting on our doormat. I picked it up. No envelope, no signature. Just 6 words in spidery handwriting. Thank you for your kindness. The ritual could not have succeeded without your presence. I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to laugh. We hadn't even spoken to them. Noah, I called. Did you meet the neighbors? What neighbors? The couple in Unit 8. He looked up from his laptop. That room's still empty, isn't it? I didn't answer. Because for the first time since we got there, I felt like maybe the stillness of Maple Hollow wasn't peace. Maybe it was something else. The motel had a rhythm, even in its stillness. Every morning around 7, Rick the manager would roll his trash bin to the curb. By 8, the lady from Unit 3 would sweep her stoop, even though the dust came back in minutes. Maple Hollow was like that. People doing things out of habit more than purpose. But after the couple disappeared from Unit 8, something shifted. The air felt different, like static in a room before a thunderstorm. I told myself it was nothing, but I also didn't step outside to smoke for 3 days. On Thursday, I finally did. Noah had gone into town for groceries, and the walls of Unit 7 were starting to feel like they were pressing in. I took a cigarette from my sock drawer, pathetic hiding place really, and stepped outside. The sky was overcast. The light was gray and flat, like everything was waiting. And then I saw it. Another note, tucked under our doormat again, like it had walked there on its own. This one was shorter, neater. We were drawn to your pain. She hears it too. I read it 3 times, trying to process what she meant. My first thought, my mom. But that was insane. Grief makes you imagine things. I knew that. I went back inside and shoved the note into the drawer with my socks and lighter. That night, the knocking started. It wasn't loud. 2 soft taps, then a pause, then another tap. But it was coming from inside the wall between Unit 7 and the supposedly empty Unit 8. Noah was brushing his teeth. Did you hear that? What? I pressed my ear to the wall. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. He came over, toothbrush still in hand. Maybe plumbing? Sounds like a hand. He didn't answer. Neither of us said it, but we didn't sleep well that night. By Saturday, it escalated. Whispers through the vent. They weren't words, not at first. Just soft breath sounds like someone reciting something under their breath. Noah recorded it on his phone. When we played it back, the whisper wasn't random. It was Noah's voice. We both stared at the screen. It was unmistakably him, only slower, flatter, like someone mimicking him through a broken speaker. I didn't say that, he said. Lauren, I swear. I believed him, but it didn't help. We went to Rick that afternoon. He stood behind the reception counter sipping a cup of gas station coffee. When we asked about Unit 8, his face didn't even twitch. There's nobody booked in 8, he said, turning his clipboard around so we could see. Had a pipe burst under that one a month ago. Haven't rented it since. No, I said. There was a couple. They had a trailer, gray raincoats, I think I'd know. Rick cut in, suddenly less casual. Only 12 units. I clean them myself. We left in silence. As we walked back, I looked toward Unit 8. Its curtains were drawn. The lock was latched, but I swear I saw the corner of the curtain shift. And someone watching from behind. Certainly. Here are the remaining 3 chapters of the story, continuing from where we left off. We stopped talking about Unit 8 after that. We didn't plan to. It just became something we avoided, like a rotting smell you get used to because you can't find the source. But the noises didn't stop, and the notes didn't stop. The next one showed up on the bathroom mirror, fogged into the glass after Noah's shower. She's listening. I hadn't seen him scared before, not really. Noah was the kind of guy who didn't spook easy, but that morning he looked pale, towel around his waist, just pointing at the words like he needed confirmation he wasn't losing it. I didn't write that, Lauren. I know. I checked the windows. Locked. The bathroom vent. Too small. We were alone. We had to be. That night, we left the bathroom light on and pushed the dresser in front of the door. It felt stupid, like a child's solution to a grown-up problem. But neither of us slept otherwise. I kept waking up to the sound of pacing in the room next door. Slow, dragging footsteps back and forth, always stopping at the shared wall, then starting again. Sometimes I'd hear a breath, or what sounded like quiet crying. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of bed, barefoot, and stepped out onto the walkway. The air was thick, like walking through wet wool. I crept to the door of Unit 8 and placed my ear to the wood. Silence. I reached for the handle. It turned, unlocked. Inside, it was empty. Furniture still covered in plastic, floor dusty, the room dark except for the light spilling in from behind me. And the tree out back, it was glowing faintly. Or maybe it was just the moonlight reflecting off something wet around the base. That's when I saw the photo. Just one, lying in the middle of the bed. Me, standing outside Unit 7, smoking. My back turned. It had been taken from behind. I left without looking back. Didn't tell Noah that night. Just crawled back into bed and stared at the ceiling, shaking. We tried to act normal. For about 4 more days, grocery runs, TV, talking about jobs, fall schedules, new beginnings. But every conversation felt like we were pretending we were still on solid ground. Noah kept recording the whispers. They got worse. One night, the playback had both of our voices. Me, whispering things I never said. I don't want to go. She's not done with us. We were meant to be here. I started blacking out. Not for long, seconds, minutes. But I'd come to with no memory of how I got from one end of the room to the other. One night I woke up standing in front of the door, hand on the knob, heart racing like I'd been running. That same day, a note showed up under the pillow. It's almost time. The roots are listening now. Noah tried to laugh it off, but I saw him move the knife from the kitchen to the bedside drawer. That night, he didn't even pretend to sleep. Around 2 a.m., we heard it. 3 loud knocks. Not on the door, but inside the wall, near the bed. Noah jumped up and hit the light. Then another knock. This time from the closet. Then the bathroom. "Pack your stuff," he said, already grabbing our bags. I moved without thinking. Something deep in me knew this wasn't going to stop. We threw everything into the duffel bags, left the food, the clothes we didn't need. I checked the mirror once before we left. A handprint. On the inside of the glass. Too small to be Noah's. Too long to be mine. We drove all night. Didn't speak until the sun came up. And even then it was just one sentence. "We're not going back." We didn't check out. Didn't explain. Rick never called. Maybe he didn't care. Or maybe he knew. We got an apartment in Asheville. Noah started teaching. I started freelance copywriting, safe work from home. We pretended it never happened. But it followed us. Not with notes, not with whispers, just with the silence between us. Every now and then, I'd catch Noah staring at vents. Or he'd ask, "Did you hear that?" Even when I hadn't. I'd dream of the motel sometimes, of the couple walking in circles behind Unit 8, whispering something I couldn't understand, until I did. They were saying my name. One day, months later, I looked up the Fern Hollow Motor Inn. Gone. No listings. No trace. The Google Maps street view showed nothing but an overgrown lot behind an abandoned strip mall. Like it had never been there at all. But I know what I saw. A motel room with something behind the wall. A note thanking us for a ritual we didn't consent to. A tree in the back that grew despite the gravel and heat. And a voice that still whispers, sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep. She hears you. If there's one thing I learned from Maple Hollow, it's this. Trust your instincts. We teach ourselves not to. We rationalize, we soften the edges of fear, we tell ourselves not to be dramatic. But deep down we know, We always know when something is wrong, whether it's a room that feels too quiet, or neighbors who don't seem real, or a voice in the wall saying your name. You listen. You leave. You don't wait for it to get worse. Because some places don't want visitors. And some stories don't end. They wait, just outside the door. You ever have one of those moments where something feels just a little tilted? Like the world's still spinning the way it always does, but the gravity's a hair off? That's how it felt the minute I turned off the main road onto that cracked driveway and saw the flickering neon sign. Red Lantern Motel, the R half lit, the N buzzing like it was trying to whisper something. I pulled into the lot around 6:05 p.m. Saturday. The Alabama heat was dying down, but you could still feel it radiating up from the pavement like old anger. My name's Liam. I was 26 at the time, coming off a pretty raw breakup with my life in general. Job didn't work out, family was basically on mute, and I'd just moved out of my cousin's place 2 weeks prior. Most nights I'd stay up scrolling, watching late-night horror movies, texting people I'd probably never meet. That's how I met Marissa. She was funny, real funny. Had this smart, biting wit, the kind that made your thumbs hesitate when replying because you didn't want to mess up the rhythm. We bonded over obscure horror movies. She liked the quiet, cerebral kind. Stuff that wasn't about the kill, but about the waiting. The dread. We'd been talking for about 3 weeks when she said, maybe we should actually hang out sometime. I told her yeah, I'd be up for it, but only if she was cool with something low-key. She said she didn't do crowds or pressure. Seemed perfect. I booked a room halfway between us. Cedar Bluff, Alabama. Middle of nowhere, but not far enough to be creepy. At least that's what I told myself. Red Lantern was old, but serviceable. It had that dated, cigarette-stained charm of every other cheap American motel, the kind that sells both ice and bug spray at the front desk. The woman at the counter, Diane, her name tag read, barely looked up from her crossword. She slid me the key, told me I was in room 12, and said, someone else checked in earlier. Might be your friend. I raised an eyebrow. A woman? I asked. She just shrugged. Didn't see him. Just the key was gone already. My stomach tightened. Not quite fear. Not yet, just confusion. I texted Marissa, you already here? No reply. Still, I told myself to relax. Maybe she wanted to surprise me, maybe she was nervous too. I let myself in. Room 12. The curtains were drawn, the AC was groaning like an old man, and the overhead light flickered just once before settling into a dull, amber glow. I dropped my overnight bag and snacks on the dresser, then checked the closet. Open. I didn't remember opening it. I shrugged it off. Showered, changed shirts, brushed my teeth twice. At 7:45, I was still alone. I texted her again. Still no reply. At 8:12, the motel phone rang. Noise complaint from room 12, a voice said. Low. Male. I said, I'm the only one here. The line went dead. I walked over to the closet again, still open, but this time I knew I'd closed it. By 8:30 I was pacing. I'd gone back through our text history, rereading old conversations. There was one about a movie, The Vanishing, the Dutch version. We both loved it, but the message was different now. Instead of, it's not the guy you expect. That's what makes it so good, her reply read. Sometimes people disappear for a reason. Same timestamp, different words. I scrolled further back. Some jokes were missing, others had been replaced. It didn't make sense. Either I was losing it or something was wrong with my phone, or worse, something was wrong with this whole night. Then at 9:03 came the knock. 3 firm taps. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked through the peephole. It wasn't Marissa. It was a man in a black delivery uniform. No hat, no bag, no food. Just standing there like he was waiting for me to make the first move. I cracked the door a couple inches. Can I help you? Food delivery, he said flatly. I didn't order anything. He tilted his head slightly. You sure? That's when I noticed his name tag. Blank. Just a rectangle of plastic. I slammed the door, locked it, engaged the chain, moved the desk chair in front of the handle. My heart was racing, but I told myself he'd just go away. At 9:41, I got a message from Marissa. "Hey, I'm stuck, can't make it tonight, sorry." Sent at 6:13 p.m., the exact minute I checked in. I stared at that timestamp for a long time, my stomach twisted. I called her. It rang twice, then clicked to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back just a couple inches. There he was, the delivery guy, sitting in an old rusted sedan across the parking lot. Engine off, lights off, just sitting there. Head tilted toward my room. I turned off the lights, packed my bag, left the TV on as a decoy, climbed out the bathroom window, ran like hell down a gravel path beside the building until I reached a Chevron station with flickering pumps and a clerk behind bulletproof glass. I called the cops, explained everything. They came, looked around, found nothing. No delivery guy, no Marissa, no guest records under her name. The police didn't think it was much. Said it was probably a prank or maybe someone trying to scam guests. Told me to file a report online, gave me a number, then left. I sat in the gas station for a while, staring at the glowing screen of my phone. All the texts were still there, but they felt wrong now, like a stranger had typed them while wearing Marissa's voice. Eventually, I drove home. I didn't tell anyone about it for a while, not because I was scared no one would believe me, but because part of me didn't want to know what actually happened. I deleted all my dating apps the next morning, blocked her number. I even reset my phone, but none of that erased the memory of that knock, or that face at the door. The way he said, "You sure?" Like he knew something I didn't. 2 months later, I moved in with an old college friend in Nashville. He had a couch and a dog and zero curiosity about my past. Perfect setup. But the feeling never left. Not completely. Every motel I passed gave me a quiet shiver. Every new notification made my chest tighten for a second. Then one night, I had a dream. I was back in room 12. The closet was open. Only this time, something stepped out of it. Me. But not quite me. A little thinner. Darker eyes. And it said, "I know what you need to hear." I woke up sweating. 6 months later, I was on a trip for work. My company had me out near Memphis inspecting warehouse loads. They booked me a room at a proper hotel this time. Card entry, security cameras, chain lock. Still, I checked under the bed, in the bathroom, in the closet. Everything was clear. But around 9 p.m. I got a knock. 2 short taps. Then silence. I didn't open the door, didn't say a word, just turned off the lights and waited. Eventually, whoever it was went away. Or maybe they were never there. I'll never know. But here's what I do know now. When something feels off, it probably is. We're taught to be polite, not to overreact. But trust? That quiet voice that stirs in your gut? That's survival. It doesn't come from fear. It comes from the part of you that wants to stay alive. When the world whispers that something's wrong, don't wait for it to scream. Listen. Lock the door. Trust your instincts. And never ever open it unless you're sure. When I was 10, my dad came home with a smile so wide it looked unnatural. The kind he wore when he was either about to give bad news or spend money. Turned out it was neither. He'd gotten a quarterly bonus and wanted to do something spontaneous. His word, not mine. That Friday, we packed up the Chevy with snacks, an old GPS, and a beat-up duffel bag full of mismatched socks and drove west into Colorado. Just me, my dad, and my mom. We weren't the vacation type. My parents worked a lot, retail mostly. They argued about bills and barely had time to eat dinner at the same table, so this trip felt strange. I kept waiting for the catch, but my dad was lighthearted. Mom seemed softer too, laughing more easily. For once, it felt like we were playing at being a normal family. On the second day, We pulled into Estes Park, a little mountain town near a national park. We didn't stay at a chain hotel like we usually did. My dad wanted rustic. He found a place called Ridgeview Pines Motel, a string of wooden cabins in a horseshoe layout tucked behind a line of pines. There were only 6 or 7 cabins, spaced out, gravel lots in between, a fire pit off to one side, and a swing set that creaked even without wind. We stayed in cabin 2. It was small, wood-paneled walls, plaid curtains, a kitchenette with a rusted sink, and 2 beds. I thought it was awesome. Like summer camp, except with my own TV and microwave popcorn. That first night, we made s'mores by the fire. Dad told a story about getting lost in Yellowstone when he was a teen. Mom played along, jumping at the scary parts. I fell asleep on the couch and woke up tucked into bed. Everything felt simple. The second night, something felt off. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't loud or anything. There was just this pressure in my chest, like waking up mid-fall from a dream. I got out of bed for water. The cabin was still. My parents were asleep, my mom's arm resting over my dad's stomach like she was anchoring herself. I walked to the tiny kitchen and glanced toward the front window. The porch light cast a dull yellow glow onto the gravel. That's when I saw him. A man stood just beyond the light, maybe 15 feet away. His clothes blended into the dark, maybe a hoodie or jacket. But what I remember clear as day was the mask, white, homemade, almost like papier-mâché but with uneven edges and stains around the mouth. He didn't move, just stood there watching. I didn't scream. My voice died in my throat. I backed away, barely breathing, then called out shaky, "Dad?" My dad was up in seconds, stumbling toward me, then glancing toward the window. "What?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. There's a guy outside." By the time he looked, the man was gone. My dad opened the door, stepped onto the porch with a flashlight, scanned the area. Nothing but trees and gravel. "Buddy, you sure you weren't dreaming again?" he asked. I was awake, I promise. He exhaled, crouched down, gave my shoulder a squeeze. "You've had sleepwalking episodes before. Maybe this was like that." I didn't argue. I couldn't. I knew I was awake. That night, I slept in their bed. My mom didn't say anything about it, but I saw her checking the locks twice before we turned the lights off. The knock came just past 2 a.m. It was soft, but unmistakable. Not at the door, on the back wall of the cabin, which didn't make sense. There was no walkway back there, just trees and dirt. My dad sat up first. "What the hell?" he mumbled, already swinging his legs off the bed. Mom looked at him, eyes wide but calm. She didn't speak, just watched as he pulled on his sneakers and grabbed the flashlight again. "Stay with your mom," he said, but I was already clutching her arm. We heard him walk through the cabin, unlock the front door, and step outside. A second later, his flashlight beam cut across the side window, then nothing. Minutes passed, then 10, then 15 minutes. When he came back in, he locked the door behind him without a word, then walked over to the closet and started throwing things into the duffel. "What's happening?" my mom asked. "We're leaving." "Was it an animal or?" "No, I don't think so. Let's go." She didn't ask again. She helped him pack, and within 10 minutes we were all in the car. I didn't even have socks on. My dad kept glancing in the rearview mirror like we were being followed. We drove in silence for over an hour. By dawn, we were checking into a Holiday Inn outside Denver. They never said a word about it. Not then. Not after. I'm 20 now, and I haven't camped since that trip. Certain things still make my stomach turn. Gravel driveways, the smell of pine mixed with cold air, old wood paneling. I keep blackout curtains in every place I've lived. I don't open them after sundown. I don't sleep with windows unlocked. If I stay in a cabin or Airbnb, I check every closet twice, because I remember how that man stood there, still, waiting, like he wasn't surprised to be seen. I asked my mom once, years later, if she remembered anything weird from that trip. She paused, her hands shaking slightly as she lit a cigarette. She didn't answer the question. Instead, she said, "Some people don't knock to come in. They knock to see who's dumb enough to answer." I've never forgotten that. Last week, I found Ridgeview Pines Motel listed online. Still there. Same layout, same cabin numbers. Cabin 2 is available for booking. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hand hovered over the mouse, but I didn't click. There's a kind of fear that doesn't shout. It whispers. It tells you to stay quiet, to trust that feeling deep in your chest. That's the fear I learned to live with. I know what I saw, and I know, deep down, that he wasn't just watching. He was waiting. And I'll never forget that he didn't knock on the door. He knocked on the wall. The trees don't have doors. Listen to your instincts, especially when they whisper. Not all dangers make noise. Sometimes the greatest threats are the ones that wait in silence, not to scare you, but to see if you'll ignore the feeling that tells you something isn't right. Trust that feeling. It might be the only thing standing between you and what waits on the other side of the wall. I've always believed the world slows down the moment you get far enough from cell towers. Like clockwork. You drive through one of those dead zones, forest on both sides, mist hanging low over the treetops, and time stops mattering. That was the hope anyway. After 18 months of back-to-back deadlines, medical scares in April's family, and a career shift I wasn't even sure I liked, the idea of disappearing for a few days sounded like the only thing keeping us upright. We found Rainhaven Lake Motel through some old blog April bookmarked. No reception, no Wi-Fi, just wood cabins, gravel lots, and pine trees so tall they looked like they were holding the sky in place. Our room, number 9, sat right up against the edge of the lake. The water came up so close it shimmered under our porch light at night. When we got there, April didn't say a word. She just walked to the edge of the dock with her sketch pad and breathed for the first time in weeks. That's how I knew we'd made the right choice. For 3 days, everything fell into place. We grilled over firewood. We played card games by lantern light. She drew trees and birds. I fished and came back with nothing but mosquito bites and sunburn. It didn't matter. We weren't healing exactly, but we'd stopped the bleeding. We went to sleep early, woke up without alarms. We let the silence patch us up. But that 4th night, the one with the rain, that one changed something in me. Maybe for good. It was a slow rain. The kind that sounds nice on the roof, like a soft drum beat you don't mind falling asleep to. We'd finished dinner and were cleaning up when the knock came. 3 light taps. Not hurried, not desperate, just there. I opened the door and saw a guy, maybe 24, soaked to the bone. Backpack slung over one shoulder, shoes covered in mud, and a weak grin like he knew how this looked. "Sorry to bother you," he said. My car skidded off into a ditch about a mile out. No bars, no signal. I've been walking for over an hour. I saw your light and just wondered if I could wait out the night here. I'll be out at first light. April was hesitant. I could see it on her face. But something about the guy, Ethan, he said, didn't ring any alarms for me. He looked embarrassed, cold. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. That might have been my mistake. We gave him a blanket, poured him a mug of instant coffee, and let him take the armchair by the heater. He seemed grateful. Said he hiked here sometimes. Asked about the lake. We talked for a bit. Nothing deep, just people being polite when they're sharing space. When we went to bed, I remember April whispering, "You sure?" I nodded. "Yeah, he's just a kid." That was the last time I felt sure about anything. I don't know what woke me. It wasn't a sound so much as a feeling, like stepping off a curb in the dark. Then I heard the crash. I sat straight up and looked toward the kitchen. A cold breeze brushed my arms. The side window, just above the sink, was cracked inward, glass on the floor. A few muddy footprints, dark and wet, crossed the tile and led toward the hallway. "April," I whispered. She was already awake, eyes wide. I rushed to the front door. Still locked. Chain still in place. Ethan was gone. I checked the armchair. The blanket was tossed aside. His coffee cup still sat on the table, now cold. Our bags had been opened. My wallet. April's watch. Gone. I looked for the car keys. They were missing too. I stepped out onto the porch and hit the light switch, just in time to catch the red glow of taillights disappearing between the trees. He had a car. The whole story was a lie. Back inside, April didn't speak. She just grabbed her coat and sat on the edge of the bed. Her sketch pad lay beside her, untouched since that afternoon. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I didn't even sit down. By 6:30, we were at the motel office. The manager was a guy named Ron. Mid-60s, beard like a worn broom, slow on his feet. He apologized over and over, let us use the landline to call the sheriff. The deputy didn't show until close to noon. Tall guy, quiet, more forest ranger than lawman in vibe. He listened while I explained everything, didn't interrupt, just nodded. When we finished, he scratched his chin and said, "You're not the first. We've had 3 other reports in the last couple months, same setup. Bad weather. Young guy shows up. Polite. Knows how to make you trust him. Then he's gone by sunrise." He pulled up the security footage from the tiny camera above the office. It didn't show the window break or the theft, but it did show Ethan arriving. Not from the road, from the woods. He'd walked around the property twice before knocking on our door. He was casing the place, the deputy said. I asked if they had a name or any suspects. He shook his head. He doesn't stay in town. Probably uses burner plates. Only thing consistent is the rain. Every one of these happened on wet nights. We left a day early. That drive home was the quietest ride of our marriage. It's been almost a year. I still think about it more than I should. Not the theft. We replaced the watch, canceled the cards, got a new set of keys mailed out. What I think about is the way Ethan smiled. Not like a guy asking for help. Like a guy remembering your face. Like he'd done it before, and would do it again. He wasn't desperate. He was rehearsed. And I let him in. I held the door. I gave him coffee. I shared my space with someone who had already decided to take from us. Not just our stuff. Something harder to name. Something more permanent. Trust, maybe. Sometimes danger doesn't come kicking down the door. Sometimes it knocks politely, waits for you to answer and smiles like it belongs there. The world isn't asking you to be unkind, but it is asking you to be awake. Trust is sacred. Give it slow. Because once it's broken, it doesn't steal from your pocket. It steals from your peace. They say the forest heals, that water clears the mind. That's what I told April when I booked the trip. After a hellish year full of deadlines, layoffs at her job, and my own creeping sense of burnout, we needed out. Out of traffic, out of the noise, out of range. Rainhaven Lake Motel wasn't on any fancy travel site. I found it through a dusty blog post from 2011, buried 2 pages deep on Google. No reception desk, just a key taped to the office window. The paint on the sign was peeling, but the pines still stood tall, towering, eternal. Room 9 sat at the far edge of the lot, facing the lake like it didn't want to be found. No cable, no Wi-Fi, no cell bars. It was exactly what we wanted. Our days were slow, peaceful. April sat on the deck with her sketchbook while I waded into the lake with a second-hand fishing rod. We cooked on the camp stove and lit candles at night. We played cards and listened to owls and slept more soundly than we had in years. That was before the knock. It was day 4. A light drizzle had started around dinner. The kind of rain you only get near the mountains. Misty, calm, almost spiritual. I had just finished cleaning the dishes when the sound came. 3 knocks. Not rushed, not panicked, just deliberate. April gave me a look. Expecting someone? I shook my head and opened the door. He couldn't have been more than 25. Dark hair, soaked hoodie, a backpack hanging from one shoulder. His jeans were muddied and there was a scrape across his palm. "Sorry to bother you," he said, voice soft. Car skidded down the road. No signal. I was hoping maybe I could dry off here till morning. He had that slightly embarrassed charm. Polite, non-threatening. April hesitated. I could feel her weighing it. But something in his voice reminded me of my younger brother, the one who always found trouble and didn't ask for help until he had no choice. "Sure," I said. "We've got a blanket. You can crash in the chair." His name was Ethan. He thanked us. We made him coffee. That night, we all sat around the little table talking about hiking spots and local trails. Nothing seemed off. But sometimes evil doesn't wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles and says thank you. When I think back to that night, it's not the moment I opened the door that haunts me. It's the one when I woke up. It was still dark. My phone was useless out there, but I checked the time on my watch by the bedside. 3:27 a.m. There was a sound. Not loud, but distinct, glass cracking, like a spiderweb fracture spreading out from one hard hit. I sat up, heart quickening, and turned to April. She was still asleep. I got out of bed quietly, grabbed the flashlight from my backpack, and stepped toward the kitchen. That's when I noticed the window. The side window above the kitchenette was open, pushed from the outside in. One corner of the pane was fractured, a splinter of glass lying on the counter, and then I saw them. Muddy footprints. From the window, across the linoleum, heading toward the hallway. My stomach twisted. "Ethan!" I called out, my voice low but sharp. No answer. I walked down the hallway and peeked into the small living area where he'd been sleeping. The chair was empty. The blanket tossed. His backpack? Gone. So was April's watch, from the nightstand. So were our wallets. The rental car keys. I ran to the front door, still locked, chain still on, deadbolt still turned. That didn't make sense. Then I flipped on the porch light and saw it, taillights fading down the gravel road, red against the rain, vanishing into the trees. I stood there barefoot, soaked in the glow of the yellow porch bulb, heartbeat pounding. I remember thinking, he smiled, he sat with us, he made small talk, and all the while, he had a plan. Friday morning, 6:22 a.m. April didn't cry. She just stared at the floor as I explained what happened, then quietly got dressed without saying a word. By the time we walked up to the office, the sun had started pushing through the mist. The motel manager was a man named Carl, retired, soft-spoken, and maybe too used to weird stories. He let us use the landline. The sheriff didn't arrive until close to noon. Deputy Owens was mid-30s, polite, efficient. He took notes while I told him everything, and nodded slowly the whole time. "Ethan," he said, slim build, 20s, polite demeanor. I nodded. He sighed. "That makes 4. Different names, same MO." April sat on the bench outside the office, arms folded tightly. The deputy asked to see the security footage, and Carl led him to the back. 10 minutes later, he returned. "He was on camera," he said. "Looped around the side of the building, checked other rooms, knocked only on yours. That's not someone lost, that's someone hunting." The words hit me in the chest. "Any arrests?" I asked. He shook his head. "We haven't caught him yet. He's careful, never leaves a car on the cameras, always during rain or fog. People want to help someone wet and stranded." April looked up then, voice flat. We didn't even question it. That was the part that hurt the most. We knew better. But still, we invited danger in, offered it coffee, and let it sleep in our space. We left the next morning, early. We checked every lock 3 times before bed that night, even back home in Seattle. 2 weeks after the trip, I found myself checking the peephole at home more often. April returned to work. I took a few days off. But something had shifted. A fracture like the one in that window. Subtle, but permanent. I started reading up on cases like ours. People targeted during moments of empathy. Rainy nights, lost travelers, trust turned into theft, or worse. The scariest part? How normal he looked. If I passed him on the street today, I might smile, might hold a door open. One night, I saw someone who looked like him on the train. My stomach dropped. I stared until he noticed and looked back. Just a college kid. Not Ethan. But that fear, that cold, didn't leave. I asked April once, weeks later, why she didn't stop me when I opened the door. She looked away and said, "Because I didn't want to seem rude." That's the cost of politeness, the crack in our instincts. We want to be good, we want to be kind, and sometimes that blinds us. It's been nearly a year. We've traveled since, stayed in other motels, but never again without checking every exit, every lock, every window. April keeps a flashlight by her side of the bed. I keep a crowbar in the trunk now. We're cautious, not paranoid, just changed. The funny thing is, I still believe in helping people, still believe in second chances. But now I know the weight of that decision. Because sometimes the thing knocking at your door isn't danger. It's deception wearing kindness like a mask. And Room 9 will always remind me of that. Trust is a gift, not a given. In a world that teaches us to be kind, we must also remember to be cautious. Compassion is not weakness, but blind trust can be. Listen to that quiet voice inside. It's there for a reason. Not all danger wears a frown. Sometimes it smiles, says thank you, and waits for you to fall asleep.